Okay, I'm going to analyse a game from 1859 between Paul Morphy and a bloke called Schreufer. No first name. Yeah, Morphy plays e4 and his opponent replies in kind. I'll just say that in my personal chess journey, Paul Morphy is incredibly important. I learned to play chess in 1967, and in 1972 I watched some of the World Championship, or at least followed it on in the papers, and I took the game a little bit more seriously, and I began to play in the school's under 13 league nearly 50 years ago. And I went to the local library to get hold of a chess book to see if I could learn something, and the only decent book they had in the library was J.J. Leventhal's The Games of Paul Morphy. Fantastic book. I fell in love with Morphy. I fell in love with chess, and I fell in love with attacking play, and I've always loved attacking play, and there's some really special things about Morphy which I love, which are demonstrated in this game, which has an absolutely fantastic finish. So, knight to f3, very normal move. Knight to c6, a very normal move. And we're in an Italian. And yeah, it comes out with the other knight. There are lots of moves here. White can play the pawn to d3 to support the pawn. He can play the queen. It's not such a good move, but he can play the queen. He can castle to defend the pawn. He can bring the knight out to defend the pawn, or he can play knight to g5 to attack the f7 pawn twice. That's a different story, the fried liver attack. But what does Morphy do? He does what Morphy always does, brings another piece into the game. He opens up a line for his queen, for his bishop, and if it costs him a pawn, so what? His opponent takes the pawn, Morphy castles. And Schreufer takes another pawn. This is unforgivable greed. You're playing Paul Morphy, man. Taking one of his pawns is cheeky enough. Taking two is unforgivable. Yeah, you're just giving him a fantastic lead in development. So what does Morphy do with that fantastic lead in development? He develops another piece. And look at that rook. Pins the knight. Threaten instantly. Okay, so he defends the knight and attacks the bishop. So when one of your pieces is attacked, you've got a few choices. You can defend that piece, you can move that piece, or you can make another attack, and preferably a stronger attack up in the odds. So what do we expect Morphy to do? One of the things I love about Morphy is very simple and direct. He brings out another piece. It's the opening. What counts is to bring out your pieces. So does he defend that bishop? No, of course not. What would he do a silly thing like that for? In fact, if black takes the bishop now, white can check, take the knight with check, and then get the pawn back on d4 as well with knight. So, it's not that good anyway. So, he takes the pawn. Why? Well, he just wants to open up a line to the king. Pawn for a bishop, is that a good swap? It's not as simple as that. Schreufer takes, and Morphy develops another piece as he loves to do. The knight's pinned, the pawn's pinned. 2 pins, fantastic. Uses them to get a little advantage. And so now he gets his piece back. So the 3 pieces against 3. You could say, looking at it very materialistically, black has an extra pawn and black has the bishop pair. So those are real advantages to black. What does white have as compensation for that? He has faster development, and he has great attacking prospects. Yeah, so he plays the bishop to block off the king, because otherwise, if we go back a move, Morphy's actually threatening knight to f6. And you think it's a fork on the queen and king, and it is a fork on the queen and king. But because it's a double check, the king has to move, and the king has to move to d8 because d7 is covered by the knight, and then Morphy has rook to e8, checkmate. So he's actually threatening mate, so he has to do something about it. He spots that, does something about it. And I like that he could have moved either knight to g5 to attack the bishop, clearly. But the good thing about moving the knight on the e file is that now the rook is pinning the bishop again. So it attacks the rook again. You've got those choices. You can defend the piece. He could block with the pawn on c3. He could play bishop to d2. That's not Morphy. He doesn't do that kind of thing. He takes with the rook. So he was already a pawn down, and now he's sacrificed an exchange. What is this lunatic playing at? Well, he's playing at the most beautiful chess. And he has to take back. And Morphy takes, and he's now threatening to play knight takes c7 check and get his exchange back. And then he won't be a pawn down, it'll be a pawn up, and black will be with a ruined position. He's also threatening to play knight takes b7, g7 check, forking the queen and king. So yeah, he defends both threats at the same time. They only move, actually. So, well, Morphy brings a piece out. An unusual thing for Morphy to move the same piece twice before finishing developing all the others. But we can see the justification in this case. You're advising the queen that it's time to move along now, sonny. And indeed he moves along. So we know Morphy's going to bring out another piece here. And indeed he does. Maybe it looks a bit okay. If you put the queen in front of on the same line as the queen and king, then you can't really move the knight. But no, again you're threatening now to play knight takes c7. The queen's pinned, it's check. Then you swap off the queens, then you get the exchange back, and then you're in a great position. So Schuffer defends against that, and Morphy takes the other pawn with check. Great, beautiful. You know, and now, yeah, a lot of people might be happy with, you know, just moving the queen out of the way and enjoying the advantage that you've got in the position, but Morphy wants to attack, and he carries on with the attack. And he plays queen to g4 check. Of course, you can't block because the only blocking square is covered by both knights. He sacrifices the knight. There's a single point to sacrifice in the knight. It allows him to bring the bishop into play. Of course, Schuffer can't play to c8, covered by the queen, can't play to e8, covered by the knight, can't play to d7, covered by the knight. So he has to take the knight. So now he's sacrificed a knight, so he's a full rook down. He was an exchange down, now he's a rook and a pawn down. So he develops another piece, of course. And that is blocked. And now, check with the knight. Really, the best move here is just to accept that things are not going your way and play king to e8. Let him get the fork on c7 and just, you know, live with it. But he tries to find a way out of this impossible situation, and he plays king to c8. Discover check with the knight, And now I think most of us can see what's coming here. Just give yourself a minute to think about it. Of course, it's a smothered mate. But what's so beautiful about this smothered mate is it doesn't take place on the usual G8 or G1 square. It takes place on B8. It's fantastic. So he checks with the knight. There's only one choice. He's got to move the king. So he checks again with the knight. Because it's double checked, the king has to move. If the king goes to d8, then queen d7 is mate. So the king has to go to b8. And then coup de grace. He gives away the queen to get mate on b7. So Morphy's given away a rook and a queen. You know, why couldn't he give away more? No, seriously. Wonderful. Just, and really, really instructive and beautiful play. Get your pieces out. Don't be messing about moving things twice. Get your pieces about. Don't be a big coward. If you get threatened, you don't have to do something about that threat if you can find something better. Which Morphy does throughout the whole game. Yeah, beautiful, mate. And you know, when you see the smothered mate in the other corner, the king is surrounded by 2 pawns, a rook, and that's it. But no, there's 3 pawns and 2 rooks around the king. You know, it's just so beautiful. Everybody, if they're lucky enough, gets the chance to play a smothered mate one time in their life. I think only Morphy ever gets the chance to create this beautiful smothered mate. Yeah, okay, thanks.